Indeed I am. I don't think Magnus Caris needed that reminder of the age differential, by the way, prior to his walk-on. 48 years old Magnus Caris, playing the...
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. First leg is Magnus to throw first. Game on.
Significantly younger Benito van der Pas, who is half his age. But you mentioned that win over Dyson Parodi in the first round for Magnus Caris and the missed doubles that we've seen this weekend. Caris missed 20 doubles in that match against Dyson Parodi, but it was still a very comfortable passage for him. 6-1 the scoreline. Yesterday, of course, 6-3 against Jelle Klaassen. Benito van der Pas had already come through his opening match, and then he was waiting backstage to see who would be his opponent in the third round. Would have been mainly assuming it would be Jelle Klaassen, especially the way that he's been playing on the Euro Tour this year, but it wasn't to be. Klaassen did not satisfy his side of the equation. Caris came through 6 from 13 on his doubles yesterday. That was more 85. Like it. 3 breaks to 2. A check out of 127 that really caught the eye as well. Plenty to like about Magnus Caris yesterday, but another tough assignment for him here.
57.
Well, Benito van der Pas looked to have timed things perfectly on the final day of the European Tour in Saarbrücken. That was the third one of the year, where, having put in an all-right display to win his opening game on a Saturday, under decent enough efforts in the Sunday afternoon, he stepped things up. He got better and better, and he saved his best performance for the 39. Final, where he averaged 110. And surely when you average 110, you're going to go and win. And that would have sealed his first Euro Tour title, but not to be. He had darts to do it in the final leg. But Peter Wright had 1 dart at bullseye for a 1-2-1 checkout. And that was the only dart he needed, Peter Wright. Missed 1 dart at double in the whole game, and that was the very first one he threw at double in that final. An unreal display of finishing that held off an astonishing display from Benito van der Pas and denied him for a second time in the final on the European Tour. Can Benito time it as well today? Get better and better and better and see off, first off Caris, next Suljovic, then Whitlock, Gurney, White or Wilson, and then possibly Peter Wright again in the final.
Yeah, it really was a brutal illustration of the fine margins in darts for Benito van der Pas when he met Peter Wright in the final.
139.
This would be uncharted territory for him as far as Gibraltar is concerned. He's never been beyond the third round here. Benito van der Pas made the last 16 12 months ago, losing to Kim Huybrechts. Caris.
Game shot on the first leg, Magnus Caris.
It is, though, who takes the opening leg here.
Benito to throw first, game on.
Third round exit 3 years ago as well at the hands of the eventual champion James Wade. 6-5 the score in that one. And he lost to Whitlock as well in the second round in 2015, so he might well meet Whitlock again. But first things first here for Benito, needs to come from behind here. Caris taking the opening leg as he did.
Well, I think this tournament has some significance for Benito because that 2014 tournament was where he really first started to catch the eye. He'd smashed up one of the host nation qualifiers, Anthony Lopez, in the opening round. But then he beat Michael van Gerwen. And he beat him playing absolutely stunning stuff. Really, really impressive. Went toe-to-toe with MVG. Came through that one. He should have beaten James Wade. He had darts to beat James Wade, who, of course, went on to become the eventual champion. And of all the players there that weekend, Wade obviously
41
took the plaudits. Steve Beaton, whom he beat in the final, was another notable player that weekend. But Benito van der Pas stood out for the caliber of his displays against Lopez, Van Gerwen, and then James Wade, ultimately in defeat to Wade. But had he come through that one against James Wade, who knows what would have happened? Maybe he would have gone on and won. He looked like the best player that weekend. And from there, he's gone from strength to strength. We saw him win in 2015.
100.
Pick up a development tour title. In 2016, he then added senior titles to his collection. 3 of them, in fact, as well as a couple more finals. They're all on the floor, away from the TV cameras. And that's a 171 for Benito van der Pas to leave him 100. Very, very efficient Benito van der Pas at switching around the board and hitting the big trebles. Treble 19, treble 18, hits a lot of things like 174, 171, 177.
60. Benito require 100.
Yeah, Caris is nowhere near at the moment as well, so van der Pas has plenty of room for manoeuvre here. Double 10 then for a first leg on the board for Benito.
Benito van der Pas.
So
the leg is Magnus to throw first. Game on.
Benito taking out 271 in 6 darts there. Nothing wrong with that at all.
He had a very nervy start yesterday, Benito van der Pas. It was a 25-dart hold of throw in the opening leg of his eventual 6-1 win over Martin Schindler. Schindler actually missed 7 darts for the leg as well. It was that sort of encounter. Plenty of missed doubles in that match yesterday as well. But having established that early lead, he then kicked on. He led 5-0 at one stage. Schindler did get one on the board eventually late on, but in the end it was very, very comfortable indeed for Benito van der Pas. 83.5 the average only, though. Kept in check by all those missed doubles. But a win's a win. He came through. And this is a player who has reached at least the quarterfinals in 5 of his last 8 European Tour events. And he could well make it 6 out of 9 here this weekend. Made the final, of course, in Saarbrücken, as Dan said. Quarter-final appearances in Hildesheim and Sindelfingen too. And 3 further quarter-final appearances
95.
This year on the Pro Tour as well.
Yeah, perhaps not hitting the heights of last year's tournaments and the floor events. I mean, he was involved in the Players' Championships. He was involved in a quarter of the finals. Won 3, lost 2. That's astonishing. Field of 128 players in each of them.
Yeah, and his first title, beat Van Gerwen in the final 6-5. Ended that match with an average of over 110. This time he won the match. 110 average, as Dan said, doesn't always guarantee success, but it did on this occasion, even though Van Gerwen produced an average of almost 112. A candidate for best Pro Tour final ever. Would you agree, Dan?
It's up there, although
60.
Remember Andrew Gilding being denied Pro Tour title by Gary Anderson. 108 averages flying around. Caris looking at a 148, and that's not going to go. So Benito van der Pas has got an opportunity here to break the throw. It's a ton plus check out that Benito will need, and Caris is going to be quite well placed.
100.
Yeah, I'll leave him 48. So Benito, 1 treble gets him a dart for the leg. And he's not going to get that treble, not with the first 2 darts.
50.
So Caris, having taken out double top, first dart, in the opening leg, repeats the trick in the third. And it is 2-1 to Poker Face. Man from Solna in Sweden.
Joe Cullen might be going there.
89.
Venue for the Europa League final, if he's a travelling Manchester United fan. Solna's home ground.
I'm wondering what you were referring to then. You're like Joe Cullen's travel agent.
Well, if he wants to
100.
Could we organise that for him? Can't really.
What's your cut?
Significant. Joe can more than afford that, though.
97.
12 months he's had.
Well, you know, malarkey tours if the old commentary gigs dry up.
It's bound to collide or clash with a Pro Tour event, surely. Hang on, is it on a Saturday or a Wednesday? It's a Wednesday night Europa League final, isn't it? Or Thursday night? Anyway.
140.
We digress. Ton 40 for Caris. This is on the Van der Pas throw here, so Benito will just have to watch his step here.
100.
Mentioned that Benito's made 2 Euro Tour finals. Obviously, there's the most recent one in Saarbrücken, about which we've talked a lot. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's an incredible game of darts. The other one was in East Germany. where
43.
he made the final, beating Michael van Gerwen once again on the European Tour en route. But Michael Smith was the man that did for him.
Yeah, that was June 2 years ago.
57.
We talked about the candidates for a first-time European Tour winner here this weekend. Van der Pas certainly in the frame. Daryl Gurney is another one as well. Who knows? Maybe Darren Johnson. Tough assignment for him tonight, though, against Peter Wright. First match from 7 o'clock, the quarterfinals, semis, and the final itself all taking place from 7 o'clock local time.
This would be huge. This would be huge. Double 19.
120.
Benito van der Pas. Well, he misses outside. It would have been a spectacular shot, but it's one that he might have had to have taken out because Magnus Caris could well break the throw here. That is a great dart. He's not missed the dart at double yet, Magnus. Oh, bends the wire. But finds it with his next dart. That is superb stuff from Magnus Caris. His best leg of the match, a 15-darter. And Benito's in a spot to bother, the two-time Euro Tour finalists and heavy favourite.
Well, we have a story in the making here. Magnus Caris has already accounted for one high-profile Dutch player. And he might be thinking about eliminating another here as well.
40.
That was some bounce out, by the way. It almost landed right next to the score on the left-hand side of the stage.
$137.
Yeah. Again, good recovery from Caris here. Benito just beginning to look a little bit flustered, or more than a bit flustered, I should say.
96.
Never a player to be seen dripping in sweat on the stage, is he, Benito van der Pas? He always has this rather cool demeanour about him, but just one or two beads of perspiration beginning to appear on his rather furrowed brow there.
$81.
I'm not quite sure what Magnus Caris was going for there.
93.
If he'd hit the 20, he would have left a bogey number. It didn't look like he was going for the 18. But then again, maybe he just thought Benito can't leave a finish, so I'll just try and hit another treble 20.
Yeah, he would have been left on 168. But anyway, we'll never know unless we ask him afterwards. But he's still on track
97.
here.
He is completely in charge of this game. And when you look at the averages, he's only averaging, what, 88, 89. Benito's averaging 91. But the thing is, Magnus Caris
97.
is on the verge here of going 4-1 up.
He's got 6 darts to play with here as well, having secured that 15-dart break in the fourth leg. 65 remaining.
He could go for the 25 again, but he knows if he does hit the ball, then he can get in all sorts of bother.
Well, 15s and 10s is an option here as well. He's found the treble 15, so double 10 he wants for the leg.
70.
Just outside the wire.
First time that he's had a dart at a double and not taken out that visit, but it doesn't really matter in this instance because Benito's not on a finish.
135.
Well, he is now, and that's just put
20.
another question mark here over Magnus Caris' head. Just uses that first dart to very, very good effect indeed, and a real first sign of emotion on the face of Magnus Caris. He is into a 4-1 lead. And Benito, once again, struggling for big numbers, finds a treble with that last dart. It was precariously pitched in as well. The first 2 darts were splayed at all angles there.
Yeah, Magnus Caris, I mean, it's not one of the most fitting names in darts poker face because you know exactly what's going through his head at any given time. And I've seen him, I remember a game at the World Championship, he was in charge of a game against Steve Beaton, I think, in the first round, a few years ago now. And ended up getting involved in the crowd and just completely disintegrated, and Beaton came back and won. And it was just, Poker Face was not the nickname that should have been bestowed upon that man right there that night. But I tell you what, I am fascinated to see the celebration if he can convert this 4-1 lead into a victory and a first ever appearance in a quarter-final of a European Tour event. He'd not even made the last 16 before, let alone be 4-1 up in the last 16 against a man who is ranked inside the top 16 in the world. But his finishing, well, it was pretty good against Jelle Klaasen. It is 57% here. And on a weekend where people, well, yes, 57%, there we go. But in a weekend where
100.
Everybody seems to be missing doubles, Magnus Caris, if he continues to take out checkouts as he has been doing, he's got a chance. I mean, we could, I am not jesting here,
57.
The dream veteran final of Darren Johnson, Magnus Caris could yet happen this weekend.
Well, a combined age of 98?
Yes.
I assume that would be the oldest European Tour final in history. I'm pretty confident that would be the case. Anyway, a lot of darts to be played between now and then before we can start thinking about that. We talked earlier, or you did, about Michael Smith's problems with his first dart. Benito, very much the same boat here. 27.3 his average 59 with his first dart. Second and third dart averages are both in the 30s, but it's that first dart that's been the problem here for Benito, or certainly has been over the last 3 legs or so.
Oh, Magnus. Magnus, double 18.
Oh. 123.
But he's probably coming back. Benito van der Pas doesn't look likely to take out a 170, does he?
Wry smile on the face of Benito, but I don't think he'll be smiling in a moment if he finds himself 5-1 down, just readjusting his attire there, maybe feeling the heat in more ways than one at the moment, Benito van der Pas. And he's ironically celebrating that visit of 134 that leaves a double 18 finish, but he might not return. Caris here looking at double 9 for a 5-1 lead. That's further away.
That
is right down the middle, and there
Magnus to throw first.
Is another obvious show of emotion. He is now 1 leg away from a place in the quarterfinals of the Gibraltar Darts Trophy.
You might have thought Benito van der Pas was vulnerable. You might have thought Magnus Caris is playing really well this weekend. You might have thought that Magnus Caris could go on and win this match. But did you think that Magnus Caris would be throwing to win it 6-1 against the world number 15? Because I certainly didn't, and I'm not sure there's many people here who did.
Well, it was almost name your price as far as the bookies were concerned prior to the start of play, which was a bit disrespectful given what he achieved yesterday in beating Jelle Klaasen. I think the thinking was, well, he can't surely do it twice, but he's on the verge of repeating the trick here. Make no mistake about that. Still isn't there yet, and we've seen players crumble in these situations before. 25 from 2 darts here won't help his cause either. But Benito has an awful lot of ground to make up here, and again the first dart is not doing him any favours whatsoever. That first dart average now is down to 26 for Benito. And he's just not really giving himself anything to work with here. Got back into the frame late on in the last leg with that 134 visit to leave a checkout of double 18, but it was an ironic celebration because he knows it was too little too late, and he was wondering where on earth these darts had come from because it had been deserting him. Might be back in business here though with a 180. And van der Pas here, well, it would be the first break of throw he needs if he pulls it off.
Well, look, I mean, we have seen it on a number of occasions where players who think they are beaten just relax and they suddenly improve.
Yeah.
Because they think, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to win this game from here, and somehow it just allows them to play better. And we have seen players get a bit of white line fever when the finish line is in sight, but Magnus Caris didn't have that against Jelle Klaasen. He didn't have that against a
90.
Dyson Parodi, all right, not a big name in world darts, but I tell you what, he was well supported, and he's not shy of letting you know that he's hit a good shot, even if that shot was about 90. double eight. There we go. And it is a breaker throw.
8-legged Benito to throw first. Aim on.
Yep. 5-2 could so easily become 5-3, and all of a sudden Caris would have something to think about once again. But look, he's broken the Van der Paas throw already today, and he's certainly capable of doing it again here.
85.
Well, look, Magnus Caris, he's not playing the full tour. He plays on the Scandinavian tour. And he has won on the Scandinavian tour. You know, he won a title last year in his native Sweden. Won one the year before in Russia. Picked one up in Denmark in 2013. Another couple in Sweden. You're going back a few years now to 2012 and 2013. They've had a number of tournaments this year.
57.
He's not top of the rankings in the SDC. I mean, Kim Viljanen has been dominating the SDC circuit. Daniel Larsson's a guy we've seen on the Euro Tour this year. He's second in the rankings. Marco Cantilli's behind him. And then it's Magnus Caris. And Magnus Caris has picked up a quarter of the money that Kim Viljanen has picked up this year. And yet, he has turned up this weekend and is sweeping aside all before him. And so far, it's been pretty convincing.
But comparatively to the guys you mentioned there, he has an abundance of experience.
Well, he does. He has,
given his advancing years.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was playing. He made the semi-finals of the Lakeside in 1994.
He's played Rod Harrington.
Well,
140.
Put it this way: when Magnus Caris made the semi-finals of the Lakeside in 1994, Benito van der Paas wore nappies.
60.
He was one. Let that sink in.
Can't shake that image from my head now, Dan. to be fair,
he doesn't wear nappies now, I assume.
Got an image of a very tall baby wearing glasses in my head with a nappy on, and I just can't shake that image.
On a sleeve tattoo.
Oh my goodness.
Magnus Caris has left 107 for the match. Not just 96. For the match. For a place in the quarterfinals of the European Tour for the very first time in his career, and for a convincing 6-2 victory. 88 remain. Not going to get a dart, but Benito looking at 146.
59.
And Magnus Caris should get 2 match darts. He will get 2 match darts.
Would have been ironic or coincidental had Caris taken out double 14 to set up a meeting with Mensur Suljovic this evening, but Caris now instead looking at 48 for a 6-2 win and a place in the quarterfinals of a European Tour event. 2 goes at tops to secure precisely that. He only needs 1. And the conqueror of yellow class in round 2 has done it again. This time he's beaten the number 7 seed Benito van der Paas. And right off Magnus Caris at your peril. The surprise package of the weekend advances to the evening session here. Benito van der Paas bids farewell to Gibraltar. It will be Caris and Suljovic in the quarterfinals. Poker Face is through.